This is J. Krishnamurti's fourth public talk at Rajghat, 1984.
We were talking about yesterday morning the nature of conflict in human beings, which then is projected or manifests itself in social chaos, and the ultimate conflict is war. We were talking about it yesterday morning, and whether that conflict could ever end in human beings. We somewhat went into it, not in too detail, and should we go into it this morning? Should we go into the whole nature of conflict and why human beings who have lived on this earth for million years or less or more have not been able to resolve this conflict in themselves and conflict with others, and the whole social structure, economic, political, is a constant battle. We have made life into a battlefield. Should we go into that? Do you want to go into it? And also we should consider, as this is the last talk, about fear, why human beings who have had great deal of fears of death, of living itself, of the future and so on. And fear has not been resolved by human beings. They've escaped from it, suppressed it or tried to transmute it. But fear is still there. And also we should consider the nature of pleasure. Why human beings have pursued pleasure and tried to deny pleasure. And is beauty pleasure? And also we should consider suffering. Again, it has been the constant companion, constant shadow of every human being in the world. Suffering, endless suffering. Suffering through poverty, suffering through the loss of someone, suffering not being able to fulfill, not having any roots, and so on. And also we should consider, ultimately, what is death? And also, what is a religious brain, mind? And what is meditation? I don't know if I can do all that this morning. But we ought to have a dialogue about all that. It may not be possible to have a direct dialogue with each one of you. That would be impossible. But we could together explore into all these problems. Not intellectually, not emotionally or romantically, but logically first, sanely, and then perhaps be able to go beyond, not sanity, but logic. So can we go into all this very, 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 very briefly? Should you take conflict first or death first? Because they're all interrelated. Conflict, fear, the innumerable hurts, psychological wounds that human beings have from childhood, and fears, pleasure, pain, grief, a sense of loneliness, and death, they're all interrelated. They cannot be isolated and say, this is my one single problem. They're all not only interrelated, perhaps we can look at this whole all these questions as a whole, not something separate. Because our life is broken up, fragmented. We are very clever in our business and most stupid in our religious activity. Or we are sentimental, romantic, without any capacity to think deeply. Or if you think intellectually, theoretically, analytically, it doesn't apply to our daily life. So we are, if you examine, fragmented, broken up human beings. And we cannot look at this whole problem of existence, which is very complex, to observe the whole problem of existence as a unitary movement, as one flow of life. And that's why we have broken up conflict as something separate from pleasure, from pain, grief, anxiety, jealousy, hatred, and so on. Could we look at this whole problem of existence, not some theoretical existence, but our daily existence as a movement which is not broken up, but like a river that is flowing. If we could do that, then any problem, any question, whether it is fear, pleasure, or the pain of anxiety, uncertainty, insecurity, and sorrow as one movement, not separate activities. Could we do that? If we can do that, then, which is the most important thing amongst these complex, contradictory states of human being, which is the most essential thing to take and go into it fully, which will cover the whole. You understand? You understand my question? Which do you think is the most important? Which, in exploring it, in looking at it very, very closely, and that very exploration covers the whole area of our existence. Which do you think? Go on, sir. People? Lady asked death. What's that? Fear? And diet. Desire. Fear.
Sense of belonging.
Sense of longing.
Of belonging.
Sense of belonging. Identifying. Having roots. Belonging to a group. Would that... Now there are several things suggested. Fear, desire, death, belonging. What? Love. Huh? Love. Which do you think among all these questions is the most important? By examining that one thing very closely, deeply, will cover the whole area of life. Huh? Death? Self. Now which do you think is? Belonging to a group, belonging to a family, belonging to a community, belonging to a tribe, belonging to a nation, belonging to, and so on. Surely, sir, could we take desire? You say, would that cover the whole existence of our life? Desire to attain nirvana, heaven, moksha, desire to fulfill, desire to belong, desire to find some identification, desire to fulfill, to possess. Could we take desire? And desire to live happily, desire to possess, and the desire to avoid death. And the desire to meditate, to find something beyond all this mortal pain and pleasure. Right? I think if we could take desire and go into it very thoroughly, not merely intellectually or verbally, but go into it. See the origin of desire, the beginning of it, and what place has desire in life, and why the monks throughout the world, the sannyasis of the world, have denied desire, why they have suppressed it. All that's implied in this question. So, could we go into the origin, the beginning of desire? The speaker can go into it very carefully. But will you also give your attention, give your energy to inquire, not merely accept what the speaker says, but to doubt, to question, to ask, to explore, so that your own brains understand this nature of desire? Could we do that? Don't easily shake your heads, but to see the extraordinary difficulty of it. Why human beings, right through the world, are slaves to desire. Why religious people have denied desire or tried to transcend it, though burning with desire, and yet try to go beyond it as in pursuit of an ideal, pursuit of some religious concept, some ideal which seems to consume them. But the desire is there in every human being. So could we go into this very, very carefully? We're going to find out what is the origin, the beginning of desire. Not how to suppress it, not how to escape from it, or transcend it, or rationalize it. We are trying to find out together, though the speaker may talk about, to put it into words, we are exploring the whole movement of desire together. A speaker means together, not that he indulges in explanation, but together. Please bear this in mind, together. Go into this question. Right? We are asking, what is desire? Not the objects of desire. You understand? Not the objects of desire. That is, I may desire when one is very young to have fun. As you get a bit older, to have a good job. And you get still older, to live peacefully. Or as you get still older, to find God. Or the desire to have peace in one's life, or the desire to find the supreme thing, and so on. We are asking not the change of the objects of desire, but the very origin, the beginning, the subtlety of desire. So desire per se, for itself, right? Why is one slave to desire? Desire seems to dominate our lives, right? In every way. desire to meditate. And in meditation, desire is to find the right method. As though there's a method to meditation which becomes then merely mechanical. I won't go into all that for the moment. And desire to possess, desire to hold, desire to have knowledge, desire to be nothing, desire to find roots in oneself or in a, and so on. It's so complex, the whole question. Now we're asking, what is desire? What is the beginning of it? What relationship has thought to desire? You understand my question? What relationship has thought to desire? Are they two separate things? Or thought shapes desire? Or thought shapes sensation into desire? Please, careful, don't agree with me. Don't say yes, yes, let's get on with it. We're asking, what place has thought in the movement of desire? Has it any place at all? Or desire is something totally divorced from thought? Are there two separate movements? Or thought expresses desire and action? Am I complicating this thing for you? So, we have first to understand the nature of thought. And then we can examine desire. Will thought examine desire? You understand my question? Please look at it very carefully. Thought being limited, as we went into it yesterday morning, then thought acts upon desire. I will not. I must not. So we have to be very clear what is the relationship between thought and desire, which is the expression of sensation. Are you following all this? I'm not trying to make it intellectual, but we'll first see this. Now, let's go into it. We're asking the origin, the beginning of desire. Our senses never act as a whole, right? Our senses are partial. Our senses are mostly dormant, except one or two senses which are very much alive. And we never look, observe the river, the tree, the skies, the beauty of an evening with all our senses. Right? Are you following? Please do it as we are talking. To observe something like the river with all your senses, not just visual sense, but with your nerves, with all the capacity of every sense awakened and looking at that. And when you do, there is a sensation, right? That is, first there is seeing, touching, which is contact. Then out of that contact, there is sensation, right? I feel the silk or the cotton. Then from that, there is a sensation. And then thought comes and says, how nice to have that kind of cloth for oneself as a shirt. Right? Now, that is perception, seeing, visual perception, contact. Then with that contact there is sensation. Either that sensation is partial or complete, with all your senses. And with most of us, it's a very partial affair. We never look at anything whole with all your senses. Now there is sensation. You see a beautiful man or a woman, and your senses partially awaken. This sensory perception is a movement of sensation. Right? Clear? Are we together in this? You see a shirt or a dress in the window. You go inside and touch it, feel it. And then there is a sensation, right? Now, thought comes along and says, how nice it would be if I had it. How nice I would look in that shirt. Right? Are you following on this? At that moment when thought gives the image to that shirt, at that moment desire is born. You understand this? Do you understand this? Please, if you don't understand it, let's talk about it. Because this is very important. We are showing there is never a suppression of desire, but the whole understanding, not intellectual but actually, the beginning of desire. That is, thought gives shape to sensation. Thought creates the image. All right, let's go into it. I see you don't see it. You see a beautiful car or a beautiful, what would you like? Sari? Beautiful what? House? A lovely garden? All right, take a lovely garden. You haven't got it in this country, some of it. Take a beautiful garden, well kept, with lovely flowers, and the scent of many flowers in the air, and the green lawn, cool, fresh, with the morning breeze. You look at it. Your eyes, your ears, your nose receive all the beauty of that garden. And you look at it, and then thought comes along and says, I wish I had that house with that garden. Right? That is, thought gives shape, creates the image, you owning that house, that garden, living in that cool, fresh morning air. And when thought with its image gives sensation, then at that moment, that second, desire is born. Clear? Are you clear? Sure? Now, the question is this. It is natural, healthy to have sensation. Otherwise you are paralyzed. Right? If you don't see the beauty of that river, you're paralyzed naturally. Or you're thinking of something else. But when you do look at that river, with the sun in the morning, making a golden path, and that extraordinary light of the sun on the waters, it is a sensation which is natural, healthy, sane. Then what happens? Thought comes along and says, I wish I could live in that house, always having that sunrise in front in the evening. That is, when thought creates the image of you living in that house with that veranda and looking in the sun, at that moment desire is born. Right? Are you clear, sirs? I can't go on repeating this. So, now, as I said, sensation is healthy. Sensation with all your senses awakened. Then there is no self at all. I wonder if you understand this. It's only when there is partial sensory responses, then the self begins. This is two different matter. So, as we said, sensation is normal. I know some of the sannyasis kill their senses as something wrong, unhealthy, immoral, sexual. But sensation is life. And because they have denied sensations, they have made the world ugly. So sensation is natural. So can you see the nature, how thought gives shape to that sensation, right? But not let thought come operate upon it immediately. You understand what I'm saying? All right, let me explain again. Good Lord, everything must be explained. How terrible. If there can be a gap, however small, between sensation and thought giving it a shape. You understand? Let there be a gap of a second, 2 seconds, or many hours. Then there is no problem. You understand what I'm saying? I see a beautiful car, or a beautiful woman, or a beautiful garden, or the lovely evening. You see that sensation. And don't see the truth that thought makes for desire. Therefore, keep it apart for a while. Can you do that? That is discipline. That is austerity. Not loincloth, few shirts and all that. That's real austerity. So be so totally aware. So that there is no control. Where there is control, there must be conflict. But when you see for yourself, not you see somebody else sees it and you repeat it. That's mechanical, that's stupid. But if you see it for yourself, that sensation is healthy. Then you would not put up with all the dust of these filthy towns. When you see sensation is necessary, and also observe very closely that thought, with its creating the image out of that sensation, at that second desire, then keep the two separate. You don't have to keep it separate because that's a fact. You understand? Moment you see the truth of this, there is no control. There is only a total awareness of this whole movement of desire. So, we are saying desire has its place. You desire food, you desire a job, you desire so many things. Desire has its limited place. But when you desire heaven, desire to be superior, desire to have power, position, all that rot that goes on, then the trouble begins. Then you are really bringing about mischief. Now, can thought be in abeyance when there is sensation? You understand? In abeyance, it doesn't immediately react. This requires very careful observation, very close sensory responses, never throttling anything, but watching. From there you can proceed to examine fear. Fear. What is fear? We must be very quick, otherwise we have a lot of ground to cover. What is fear? And most human beings are frightened of fear. They live with fear. Fear of their gods, fear of their wives or husbands, fear of public opinion, fear of, dozen fears, or 100 fears, if you like. But we are not talking about the objects of fear, but fear itself. What is fear? What is the relationship of thought to fear and to time? You understand my question? What is the relationship between thought and what we call fear and time? The time being tomorrow, time being the past. I have a job, but I'm afraid I might lose that job tomorrow. That is, thinking about tomorrow and losing my job creates fear. You understand this? I like my wife, if I'm married, to be kind to me, but she also has her own difficulties. She's unkind, I'm frightened. Right? So, fear is born out of time and thought. Right? Do you see this? Without thought and time, there would be no fear. If death came now instantly, there is no fear. But we have said death, let it wait at the end of when I'm 90 or 100, then I will face it. So, time and thought are the root of fear. Clear? Don't, if I may suggest, don't ask how am I to stop time and thought. That's an absurd question, you can't. But you can see the fact of it. The fact that time and thought are the root of fear. So if you see something, understand it fully, there is no fear. It's only when we are ignorant that causes fear. I don't know if you understand this. No? You all look so puzzled. Look, sir. We're asking what is fear. What is the origin, the beginning of fear? Would you be afraid if you didn't think, if you had no time? You wouldn't. It is time and thought that breed fear. So if you understand time, If you understand the nature of thought, not verbally explain it, but see the truth of it. See the actual fact of time. That is, I might lose, I might gain, I might fail. That's the future. And therefore, I might and I might not. So there is fear. So time and thought are this very root of fear. And to understand and to be totally free of fear, both psychologically first. Don't say, well, aren't you afraid of getting wounded? Of course. Therefore I have to protect myself. That's natural. But psychologically, inwardly, to be free of fear, then outward fears can be met. But if you start with the outward fears, then you will never solve them. So it must begin, the understanding of fear must begin inwardly, psychologically, subjectively, inside the skin as it were. Then when you understand it, not verbally, actually see the truth of it, then fear comes totally to an end. There is no belonging, identifying with a group, with a religion, with a nation, with a tribe, with nothing. Fear has created the gods of the world. All your gods, especially in this country, I believe there are 300,000 gods. Somebody calculated, going from all over India, and said there are about 330,000 gods. That may be fun. Then you can play with all the gods. But in Christianity and in the Islamic world, there is only one God, which is rather a bore. So where there is no fear, there is such a complete liberation from all the things that fear creates. The illusions, the images, the possession. There is complete freedom. And also we ought to talk over sorrow. Fear is pleasure. We talked about pleasure. There's so many things, God. Could we look at suffering? Pleasure is fairly simple to understand, right? Sexual pleasure, pleasure of possession, pleasure of being attached to something. And pleasure is not joy. But we are driven by pleasure. When you see something very beautiful, it's not pleasure. Where there is beauty, there is no self. This is true. I won't go into it now. So we ought to talk over together, briefly, whether there is an end to sorrow. Not only personal sorrow, but the sorrow of mankind. Those people who live in a small village, dirty, unkempt, squalor, brutish, one meal a day, They also suffer. And the most sophisticated, most powerful human beings in the world also suffer. Suffering is common to all mankind. It's not only your sorrow, but the sorrow of the whole world. The sorrow of those people who have been killed in dreadful wars caused by nationalities, tribal divisions. So there is sorrow in the world. And you, as a human being, are part of that world. The world is you. The world is not separate from you. This is a fact. Because every human being, whether he lives in Russia, America, China, or in Ceylon, or in some remote island, they all go through beastly times. All go through great travail, great misery, great sorrow. In every family throughout the world there's death. It's not somebody whom you like that dies. There is death in the world. And that is part of sorrow. And we have never, ordinary laymen like us, not the professionals, not the religious leaders and all that nonsense. There is no spiritual leader at all. That's a dreadful statement, to have a spiritual leader. It's a crime, it's an evil thing. Because there must be independence, freedom. And we're asking now whether sorrow can ever end. You might say, if I end my sorrow, what value has it in the world? If all of us in this room, which would be marvelous, it would be the greatest miracle if we could all end our sorrow this morning. And then you might ask, few of us might end sorrow, but what value has it? How will it help mankind? It's a wrong question. End sorrow first and you will see. Now what is the cause of sorrow? Where there is a cause, it has an effect. The cause can change the effect. If you can resolve the cause, the effect, which is sorrow, is not. You understand? Where there is a causation, there is an end to that causation. If I have cancer, it can be eradicated. Perhaps it's terminal, then I will die. But the cause of pain, physical pain, can be eradicated. Because there is a cause for physical pain. So similarly, what is the cause of sorrow? Your sorrow, not mine. When you find your cause of sorrow, then it's my cause. Because causation is common to all of us. I wonder if you understand this. This is compassion, sir. This is love. So what is the cause of sorrow? Is it self-pity? Is it craving? Is it not essentially the self in operation? The self-interest. If there is no self-interest, when there is no self, the me, the ego, the personality, the thing to which we cling to, if there is not that, there is no sorrow. There is an end to sorrow. Where there is suffering, there can be no love. Where there is suffering, there can be no intelligence. Because intelligence is born out of compassion, not the intelligence of thought. Thought has extraordinary intelligence, because thought has put man on the moon. That is a great act of intelligence. The intelligence of thought is limited, but the intelligence of compassion is limitless. So we got to talk about death. One thing is certain, death. For all of us. That is an absolute certainty. Whether we are young or old, middle-aged or senile, death is there. What is death? Don't please quote some authority, Gita or Upanishads or Quran or something or other. Wipe the slate clean so that you can inquire. If your slate is full, there is nothing more to be added to it. But keeping the slate clean, which is having the brain completely free to observe, not clouded with previous knowledge, with previous experience, then we can ask, what is death? What is it that dies? Apart from organism, the biological structure of the human being, apart from that, that is worn out by misuse, by drinks, drugs, all the things that are going on in the world, that it will inevitably come to an end. You may prolong it for another 100 years. I hope you will. That's what you want. But what is it to which we cling to? The self. What is the self? The me. One must be brief, otherwise there is no time for all this. Is it not a continuous movement of memory? whether that memory be the Atman, the soul, the eternal, etc., etc., it's still memory. Right? So the self is memory. Without memory, there is no self. So you are memory. You mightn't like that. But the fact is that you are whole bundle of memories. And the tragedy is that we give such extraordinary importance to memory. I don't know if you are aware of this. The extraordinary importance to something that's gone, dead. Memories are called something, not a living thing. It's something past or something in the future. Right? So the self is a movement of memory, which is nothing at all. You are nothing at all. You don't see the beauty of it. So that is the expression of attachment. Death comes along and says, you can't be attached to anything, old boy, go. So you understand? So can we live daily life with death? Not death at the end of one's life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Living with death, living, which means not to be attached to a single thing in life. That is death. So to live while living, breathing, active, full of energy, and to be free of all attachment, which is death. So living with death all the time. Have you ever done it? Have you ever even attempted look at death and see what is implied in it? The greatness of it, not this shoddy fear of it. The greatness, the enormous implication of dying. And the strength of it. When you live with death, there is tremendous energy. Not to do mischief, not to become an ugly politician or a businessman or some other silly thing, but to have that infinite energy. We ought to talk over together, briefly, what is meditation? Conscious meditation is no meditation. Constant and determined meditation, to sit in a posture, to breathe certain way, repeat a mantra, and discipline yourself every morning, afternoon, evening. Deliberate meditation is no meditation. It's like any other discipline. Going to the office every morning from 9 to 5. That's a determined effort to gain money, position. And the same is extended to meditation. Say, I must sit quietly follow a certain system, which becomes mechanical and obviously, and determined, deliberate, to achieve silence, to achieve something or other higher up in the scale of success. Such meditation to the speaker is no meditation at all. I know you won't like all this, but it doesn't matter, you can listen to it. What I'm saying is the truth. You will find out, you will examine it. So we're asking, is there a meditation which is not deliberate? Yes, sir, think about it. Is there silence without deliberation? Is there a stillness of the brain without control? So is there something sacred, holy, which is not put together by thought? Something timeless, which is not put together by time. And meditation is something, must be totally involuntary. And that meditation is possible only when you begin to understand your daily existence, the daily conflicts, daily fears, daily anxieties, sorrow, pain. Without laying the foundation there, all the silly meditations have no meaning at all. Then you have to ask, is there something sacred in life? Not in the temples, not in the churches, not in the mosque. But is there something untouched by human thought? Because human thought is time and fear, time and desire, craving and all that. So is there something immutable, changeless, beyond all concept of man? If one says there is or there is not, it has no meaning to another. That which can never be put into words. But we can find each human being who is the rest of the world. You understand? Each human being is the rest of the world. He is not separate human being. When he has laid the foundation, which is not having any conflict, having no fear, ending sorrow and therefore passion, which is love, compassion and intelligence, then he will know there is something, not he won't know, there is something sacred or not.